How do book royalties work? So if you are thinking of publishing a book, whether that is self-publishing or traditional publishing, you're probably wondering, of course, how am I going to get paid? How much money am I going to earn? And how does this all come out in the wash effectively? So in this video, I've made some notes about how traditional publishing deals work, how self-publishing deals work in terms of royalty rates, and I'm just going to get into it and explain exactly how it works. So let's start with traditional publishing. Now these figures that I have here are the averages, right? So this is just what most people get. It doesn't mean it's what you will receive in terms of a royalty rate. And the thing I would stress is that if you are going for a traditional publishing deal, it's really important that you negotiate, of course, to try and get yourself the best deal. So this is what's typical. On hardback sales, you are most likely to get between 5 and 8% of a paperback sale. And quickly I should mention that this is the retail price, right? So most of the deals you will get with a traditional publisher will be based on the retail price. That means the price someone walks into a bookshop and pays for that book, not the net price, not the actual money left after printing, postage, all those kind of things. So 5 to 8% for a paperback, 15% for a hardcover, 20 to 25% for an ebook, and 20 to 25% for audiobooks. So I've done some maths here so that we get this right. Being in publishing, maths is not my strong suit, so I've written it down to make sure I get it right. So let's imagine that you're selling a book for $20 and you get 5% from each of those retail sales, right? So that's $1 for every book sold. So I've done this in dollars. Of course, I know my biggest audience is the US and the UK, right? I'm based in the UK, but I've done this in dollars. Of course, if this was pounds, if it was selling for £20 and you got 5%, it would be £1. So we'll do it this way for now. So if you sold 50,000 copies of your book, you would make $50,000 or pounds, right? But actually, that's not the whole picture, right? It's just not that simple. So don't expect a big payday right away. So don't expect to get that 50,000 pounds or dollars right away. Because when you are traditionally published, of course, the publisher might have given you an advance if you're very lucky, but that's pretty unlikely these days. Or the other thing is they actually recoup the costs of publishing from the initial royalties. So you thought traditional publishing meant that you were getting a free lunch, and as you should know, there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? So when your book actually starts selling, they will first be covering their own costs. So all the costs they spent on book covers, on printing, on editors, and this will be at a much higher price than a self-publisher, right? So we publish books, to give you an idea, anywhere from £2,000, around about $2,300, I think, at the current exchange rate, up to maybe $5,000-6,000, depending on how many editorial services you have, the cover design choices you make, etc., etc. But you get the idea. Now, if this goes through a traditional publisher, that figure is going to be more like 50,000 or something like that, because they value the time much higher, obviously so that they can recoup the actual costs and get some profit on top of that. Now, I don't, of course, have any proof of this, but I've worked in the industry long enough to know the ins and outs. Really the way to think about them creating your book, and they might pay to have the initial work done, but that's really a loan is what that is, right? Is the way to think about it. It's really a loan, and your book, if you like, is the collateral. So, of course, you will need to pay all of that back. Now, let's move on to self-publishing, because if you decide to self-publish, you will, of course, be earning money from your book right away. So the minute that book goes live, you will start to earn money. That money is yours, and it's yours to keep. And on top of this, what's really important is that you will own the rights to your work. So you could sell foreign rights. You own, the copyright entirely. So you decide what you do with that. You could sell it to be made into a TV show or a film script or something like that. And as a lot of people do, you could then launch a business on the back of your book. You could sell courses, if you're going more the business route with your book rather than sort of the fiction route. So it's entirely up to you. And you couldn't do a lot of those things with a traditional book deal because they own the copyright. They own your work. They own all of the rights to it. So they will decide what you can and can't do with it. The other thing I would say is that KDP and a lot of the other distributors use the term royalty, but it's actually not correct, right? You're actually just getting paid money because you still own the work. So a royalty is something you get paid when someone else owns or has licensed your work or is using your work. So obviously royalty gets used because it's simpler to understand in the context of the industry, but really it's just you getting paid for your work. So let's go back to the maths example. So I've got it here in front of me, so there are no mistakes. So let's imagine using that same example that self-published, you sold 50,000 copies of your book at $20 per book, £20, right? You would keep on average 35% of this. So this is a very important distinction. So using this example right here, for those 50,000 books sold, you would make $350,000, right? Or pounds. So compared to your traditional deal, you really haven't made much money at all. So you can see how much more money you can make traditionally self-published. So one thing that I will highlight about this, so that is receiving the net royalty. So as a self-publisher, we offer our clients the net royalty from their book sales. What that means in practice is it means that when your print book or your ebook is sold, of course, Amazon, Smiths, Waterstones, whoever who retails the book takes a percentage of it. If it's a paperback, we have to pay for the printing and the postage. So on average, with a paperback, with us, you'll keep more like 40% of that. And again, that's after postage, packing, the retailers taking their money. And you will keep 100% of that net royalty. So whatever is left after that, you keep all of it. We don't take any of that at all. And with an ebook, of course, that would be 70%. And you would keep that whole 70%. So if it sells for £10, you get to keep £7 of that. So you can see how it is a lot more lucrative for you as the author. A few other quick pointers is it's important to pay attention to, if you go traditional, how the royalties are arranged. So you sometimes have something called stepped royalties, where you might get 10% on the first 5,000 books sold, and then 15% thereafter. So you have to really pay attention to all the terms. I would advise getting someone who really knows this stuff to look over it all. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do subscribe, like the video, and follow along for more great writing and publishing content.